Welcome to Chat with Nat, Conversations That Count, the podcast where real conversations meet real life. I'm your host, Natalie Keim, an entrepreneur, financial professional, caregiver, and advocate for living fully. This show dives into the stories and strategies that shape who we are and how we thrive. Sometimes survival is just the beginning. And last week, we heard Lindsay Stadel's raw, powerful story of surviving her suicide attempt and the moment that changed everything. Today, we're continuing that story, but this time it's about what came after, the rebuilding, the marriage that grew stronger, the businesses she and her husband Tim created, faith and purpose that took root from pain. If you've ever wondered how to turn heartbreak into hope, this episode will show you what thriving really looks like together. I'm going to go ahead because we're referencing suicide. We're not going into the details the same way we did last week's episode, but I'm going to go ahead and read a trigger warning here. So if that is something that's sensitive to you, please skip to other episodes. But before we begin, again, this episode contains discussion of suicide, mental health struggles, and recovery. Listener discretion is advised. If you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out for help. In the United States, you can call 988 to reach Suicide and Crisis Lifeline for free, confidential support 24/7. As always, I'm going to kick off this episode with a money tip of the week, and it is invest in healing like you invest in wealth. When people think of investment, they think stocks or real estate, but healing is one of the highest ROI investments that you'll ever make. Whether it's therapy, coaching, time off, or simply rest, healing makes you more focused, more creative, and more grateful. And that's the mindset that creates lasting wealth. I'd like to reintroduce Lindsay real quickly. And Lindsay, is it Stadel or Stadel? Stadel. My bad. Lindsay Stadel is a devoted wife, mother, grandmother, and multiple business entrepreneur. She runs 4 thriving companies: Stadel Farms, Inc., S&S Harvesting, LLC, Flint Hills Transport, LLC, and TLS Logistics, LLC, alongside her husband. Beyond their success in business, Lindsay's true mission is in mental health advocacy. Driven by her personal experience with suicide and recovery, through her writing, speaking, and leadership, she inspires others to choose life, faith, and purpose every single day. In this part 2, Lindsay shares how she and her husband rebuilt their marriage, actually got married after this, built their marriage, grew faith, a family, and amazing businesses after their darkest moment. We'll explore how surviving didn't just give her a second chance, it gave them both a new mission and a sharper purpose and vision that's changing lives. Lindsay, welcome back to the show. It's so great to have you here again.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here again.
Are you in Missouri?
Kansas.
Okay. And I think we started off before I hit record. It's cold up there, right? You said it's not going to be above 60 for a little while?
Yeah, I believe so. We're getting down. Yesterday morning, it was below freezing.
Oh, yeah, I'm not ready for that.
It was 29.
I mentioned to Lindsay also that this week in Texas is like my heater's on in the morning, my AC's on in the afternoon. And it's the weirdest thing. I laugh at myself every time I switch it over. But with my parents living with me, I want to keep them comfortable. So we do what we have to do.
Absolutely.
Well, Lindsay, I want to jump into this episode now, and I'm really excited for people to hear what you and Tim have created. You know, we talked about your suicide attempt. We talked about the details of that. And if you haven't listened to last week's episode, please go back and listen to it. It's a very emotional story, but I think it's a message that's so important for anyone that struggles. It's not about have you been a suicide survivor? Have you experienced suicide in your family? Have you experienced that that depth of struggle and darkness in your life. It's about if you have struggled at all and the path and the purpose in moving forward from that. And it's different for every single one of us. But Lindsay, your story is just beautiful at every level. And so I want to start by asking, what did rebuilding look like for you and your husband? I know you got married after this. You were dating before, kind of off and on, and it was exclusive. You guys ended up getting married, and you've built a beautiful family, which we kind of wrapped up last week's episode with. What did it look like from there? What was that? What were some of those steps you took, some of that process in moving toward starting business together?
It was very difficult. I had to get mentally healthy before we could focus on creating businesses or growing businesses that were already created.
Yeah.
And I also had to get my bonus son's trust back because I had hurt them so bad
Mm.
prior to my incident, and they really did not trust me. And so it was a very long process of showing up, proving that I was here to stay. And, eventually I was able to win their trust back. And even though they say, "Oh no, you're not my stepmom, you're my friend," because I was
Um,
friends with them before I was their stepmom.
yeah.
But, those boys would, do anything for me. And then when they got married to their wives, I had to build trust with them because I knew their wives before
Mm.
my incident. And then when our first grandchild came, I really had to prove that I was mentally stable, because if I ever wanted to, take care of my grandson, I needed to make sure that his parents knew that I was okay.
Yeah.
And so it was a very long process. And I even had to gain back the trust of my own daughter because we didn't speak for a couple years after the incident, texts here or there, happy birthday, happy Mother's Day, what have you. But I my struggles and my incident really put my daughter in a very dark place.
Yeah.
And she had to go to therapy as well. And so having the couple years where we were really separated and dealing with our own demons really made it so much nicer, because now she works alongside me in the office every single day.
I love that.
And so now all four of our kids, my two bonus sons, my daughter, and my son, we all work together just about every single day in some aspect. And there's not very many people that can say that they work with their kids every day or they work with their husband every day. I hear a lot, "I don't understand how you can live with him and work alongside him."
Yeah.
But, this is the life that we chose, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I get to
Yeah.
see my kids every day. I get to see all three of my grandkids almost every single day. And it's gotten to the point now that, I can have all three grandkids. Yes, I am a one-armed woman taking care of three grandkids, two in diapers, but it's sorry, my dog. It's absolutely amazing to be able to have all three of them together.
Yeah.
And so mentally, I'm the healthiest that I've ever been in my entire life.
Lindsay, I think that's such an important thing to say. And gosh, there was so much, even in just that couple of minutes of what you just shared, that you had to do your own work for yourself first. And Then you had to take on the battle or the climb back to trust in every important relationship in your life. And so while you focused on you first, yes, there still had to be strength and continuing focus and growth for yourself as you're tackling that with your loved ones too, to remember to be able to separate that healing for you and the healing that they needed as well, that had to come from you. So here you are healing yourself, but you've also got to be able to give space and give time and give effort and communication as you're healing to other people who are also healing alongside you. And I think, I sat there as you were saying that and I thought to myself, I remember from last week's episode, you said that there is a chunk of time that you don't remember when the incident happened. But what you do remember is that before that, feeling like you'd failed yourself, you had failed everybody who cared about you, you had failed your community, you'd hurt people. And there was this feeling of everybody would be better off if I wasn't here. And so what I see in your story, what you guys have built, what you've overcome is, and I'm not surprised because you guys have taken every single step that you've had. You've done the work, you've sat in the hard conversations, you've made space for each and every one of them and their feelings and the timeline that they needed, that you guys now have built back to a place where every component of your life is intertwined. Your businesses, your daily life, your family, being a grandma, it's all done together. And I think it's beautiful because what you thought was so far broken and separated before is now this beautiful, connected. I think about, and I don't remember if I talked about this last week's episode or not, but the Japanese idea of kintsugi. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
So they will take pottery that's broken and they will put it back together, but they mend it back together with gold in between. And so you get this finished product again, but it has all these veins and lines where all the cracks and broken pieces came apart, filled by gold, therefore making the piece more valuable after it broke than it ever was before. And I think that your story is exactly that. A beautiful putting back together where those cracks and broken parts aren't gone. They're filled in with growth, with forgiveness, with peace and coming back together as a family. And I just think what a beautiful, beautiful journey that you've gone on and that each of them has gone on, because it had to be a difficult journey for them as well. But you guys are in an amazing place. And I know you talked about, Tim was there right away and he's like, I'm going to see you through this. I believe in you, all of the things. And what was that piece like? Because even though he loved you and he knew that he wanted to be with you and he wanted to walk this path with you, it had to be a big journey for him as well.
Yes, it was. I had hurt him so bad that he did not seek out like mental health therapy, but he did a bunch of things online and was able to access resources online that really helped him, because he even went through his own struggle because of what I put him through.
Yeah.
And, I can't imagine driving down the road. I don't have tissues right next to me. Driving down the road and having someone open the door and jump out of your vehicle.
Yeah.
And then having to turn around and go, pick them up off of the gravel road, bloody, torn apart, put them in your truck, take them back to the house and call 911. I can't imagine how hard that must have been for him. And there are things that we still don't talk about. One of them was that incident, because what he went through, and what I went through, he remembers both.
Mm.
And I don't remember either.
Yeah.
And, it's one of those things that I don't know that I want to remember. My brain has blocked it out for a reason.
Yeah.
And so he didn't know if I was alive or not for 2 days after he watched me fly away in the helicopter. And then once he found out that I was alive, he tried to continue on with his daily life, taking care of the farm, taking care of, his family, being there for the boys. They, at this point, of course, they were both grown, but still having to be there for them. And so he went through a very dark place himself.
Hmm.
And we didn't have any connections at all for almost a month. And then the day that I committed myself to the mental health facility, I got a hold of him and I told him, I just want you to be aware, I have decided to take this step. And my plan is to get healthy, I have to go through the tough conversations,
Yeah.
and I have to be completely raw and real and honest, because what's the point of going to therapy if you're not truthful?
Yeah. That's so important.
Yes. So once I got into the mental health facility, I had to fill out forms of, can anybody contact you while you're in here? And I said, no, I don't want anybody to contact me. I
Mm.
don't want to see anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody on the phone, none of that. And the very first day I walked in there and I sat down, and my thought was, I don't belong here. This is for crazy people. I'm not a crazy person.
Mm.
And then the second day I realized I do belong here, because I did go crazy and I need to fix that. But then I reached out to Tim and we talked on the phone every single day, and I invited him to come and see me. I wasn't sure if he was going to come or not. And then on that Saturday that he came and see me, I saw the pain in his eyes, and he told me how scared he was. And him coming to see me that day was the first day of our new life.
Mm.
Because after that, we may not have been together every day because, well, even after we became an item, he had work in other states that he had to take care of. So since that day, I mean, we've been together ever since. And I've not faltered. I love the man. He saw me in my darkest hour, and he got me through it. And then rebuilding things after I came home was even harder, because I had to move out of the place that I was living in. Since I had gone into the facility, I had, no money. I had no job. I couldn't pay rent. So I had to get out
Mhm.
almost, within days of getting back. And he helped me, find a new place, move into the new place. And then he moved into it with me, which was absolutely amazing, because here's this country cowboy who leaves his farmhouse that he's been in for 20 plus years and moves into this little tiny one-bedroom apartment in the city. And it's always funny because he just looked like he didn't belong. He just looked uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it's what we had to do. We had to get away from the community so
Mhm.
we could build our relationship back. And then we moved back up here a few years later, back up here, meaning back up to the farm. We moved back a couple years later and built an amazing house. and an amazing shop that we run all four of our businesses out of. And the TLS Logistics is mine and Tim's dream. That one is our business. The other three, the boys, the family shares in it, in some aspects.
Yeah.
But the TLS Logistics is mine and Tim's dream. And that's something that we built exclusively together. And it's absolutely amazing now that, we're able to talk about the past. And yes, we get emotional about it, but we're able to talk about it and relive some of the moments, because there might be something that we're going through. Maybe we're not getting along and he's starting to worry. Well, is she going to backpedal and go back to what she was? So we're able to talk about that stuff. And I wasn't able to talk about my mental health before.
Yeah.
But that came after several years of intense therapy to get me to the point that I'm able to talk about it freely and openly. And he has stood by my side through the entire process. He came to therapy with me, a few times, and that way I had that third person when when we were talking about some of the difficult conversations that we needed to face. And now, like I said, we can talk about it openly. I have this beautiful life that I would have missed out on. And I'm sitting today with the pictures right
Yes.
behind me, my beautiful family that, yeah, I would have missed out on. And it makes me cry sometimes when I think about that, because being a mom, being a stepmom, being a wife, being a grandma is so much more rewarding than I ever thought possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, gosh, that right there, that last part you said, just so absolutely beautiful. And I think, lends back to the work that you've done and the lens now that you look at life through because of that healing, that lens changed for you. And I think it's so important to touch, really quickly before we kind of go in and talk a little bit more about the businesses and things that you guys are doing and building together as a couple and as a family, is that there's space for those hard conversations, because the things from our past that hurt us or choices we made that hurt others or the combination of both, they don't go away, right? Going through that healing process and coming out the other side, being able to look at the world differently doesn't erase what was. And I think where you were talking about that you still have those hard conversations. And you also highlighted the fact that for Tim, there's still some worry from time to time, which makes sense. And likely there always will be. And I hope that the listeners who maybe have navigated through something similar or just a really difficult time where maybe whatever kinds of things have happened that have broken trust or both broken faith in people or made you think things were coming to an end that somehow have rebuilt, there will always be, I think, seeds of that fear for the relationship, for the health of the people involved, physically, mentally, in every direction. And that's why it's so important to get to a place where you can and continue to have those hard conversations that help continue to build that trust and maybe minimize that seed of worry a little bit more each and every time. But you acknowledge the fact that that's still there, and you don't begrudge the fact that it comes up. You recognize that it's valid. You recognize that there's conversations that need to happen. And so you continue to navigate those together, where I think a lot of people, and I'll speak about myself in the past when things have been hard, I sweep that crap under a rug so fast right? I dealt with it in the moment, right? That initial whatever I had to deal with, and I got through somehow to the other side of whatever it was. But in getting to the other side, I would do that by sweeping it under the rug and then replacing it with other things that maybe kept me busy or helped me to find joy in other areas, which are healthy things, but those things staying under the rug are not. And it wasn't until I was in my mid to late 40s that I went through a journey because of something that had happened in my life. And I went back and revisited all of the things. For the first time, I sat in all of the mess. And, I'm Christian. I gave that stuff to God. I screamed and yelled and kicked like a 2-year-old on my living room floor more than once. But I refused to sweep something else under the rug and keep moving on as if it didn't happen, because I was at a point where I could see the detriment still from some of those things, even though I'd created great things afterwards. And I had learned a lot of things for the process. Because I never really faced them, they still just stayed there. They were always right here in the back of my mind. And when I would start to struggle, I would revisit some of those things. And so I think it's really important that you touched on the fact that you guys not only had the really, really hard conversations in the process of building back and building forward like you have, but you continue to have them. You continue to address concerns and questions, and you continue to allow those conversations to keep you guys intertwined really closely, which I think is important. And so I love that. And Lindsay, I'm so grateful for your vulnerability in last week's episode and this week's episode as well. I want to ask a little bit about, so you said there were businesses that existed. So what businesses existed before, and what businesses have you created together?
Okay. Yeah. Stadel Farms is in its fifth generation. Yes. So my husband is the third generation, and the boys, work right there for the farm every day. We can hold, or we feed up to, I think it's like 2,000, or can feed up to 2,000 head of cattle in the feedlots that we have. And it's really nice because both of the boys have their own houses on the farm. So does my mother-in-law. And I never thought I would like to be a farm girl, but
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. I'll get right out there with them, sorting cattle or medications or anything. And I absolutely love being on the farm, working on the farm with them. And the S&S harvesting, that was around before me as well. Tim had started that with another gentleman that he knew, and that's the silage business. And in that business, I would drive a truck, like a big moving type truck, but the trailer on the top is open. And I would drive right next to the silage chopper in the middle of the field as it's chopping up the corn and it's going into the back of my truck. And then I'd take it to wherever the farmer wanted it, dropped off at. And that is an absolute blast. It can get boring because you can be in a truck by yourself for 12, 14 hours every day when you're doing this. But it's so neat because every single time you come back to the field, there's something different. And there's breakdowns, and there's times that you have to get out of the truck and pull the corn or whatever they're chopping, pull it out of the head because it got stuck or it is detecting metal. And it's hot during the summer. There's been several times where the temperature alone was 110, 115 when they were down in Texas. And so it gets very hot sometimes, and
Yeah.
the air conditioners have a hard time keeping up. But yeah, those two were around before I came into the picture. And then in 2020, we decided we wanted to start an over the road trucking company. And so that's when Flint Hills came about. And we started it originally so we could haul cattle. But then we decided we were going to haul different commodities, corn, beans, whatever. And when it started in 2020, we had one employee, one truck, one trailer.
Mm.
And then by 2023, we had 13 employees, 13 trucks, 13 trailers. So it grew and it grew fast.
Yeah.
And it's so fun getting out onto these load boards and trying to find loads for our drivers to keep them out over the road, because that's their livelihood. If I can't find a load for one of my drivers, then they're not making money.
Right.
And so it's a lot of fun trying to find those loads, and trying, when the broker gives you the rate, you barter back and forth until you come to an agreeable rate that the truck will get paid for hauling that load. So that is a lot of fun. And then because I was doing that for our guys, we decided that, well, what if we started a commodity brokering business? That way, I mean, I'm in the office all day, every day anyways. So
Yeah.
why not create a business that has no overhead? Because all I have to do is get these loads for outside truck drivers that are not our employees. And that's where TLS Logistics came into play. I took an online course for being a freight commodity broker, and that's when my daughter came to work for us. So, the two older boys, Eric and Jason, they've worked on the farm their whole lives. And then Cassidy came to start working for us when we started TLS. And then Kyle, he's only 16, so he's not really working for us full time right now. And I don't know that he will, because he's really not much of an outdoorsy kid.
Yeah. He's got some other dreams.
He does. He does. But he does help. He'll come, and he doesn't help the guys in the shop or in the field or anything like that, but he will come and help Cassidy and I in the office.
Awesome.
And so that's really awesome that the four businesses, we provide for not only our families, but we have all these other employees that are dependent on our businesses that we provide, financial, support for. And it's an absolute blast. The employees have become family. And, instead of referring to one of our employees, his name is Luke, he's one of our best friends. I mean, he's just a few years younger than me, but he's still one of my kids. All of the employees, no matter what their age, they're one of my kids.
Yeah.
But the grandkids call him Uncle Luke because he is both of the boys' best friend. And, it's absolutely amazing seeing the grandkids just light up when they see him. Oh, Uncle Luke. And he's a single man, and I think he's going to be a bachelor his whole life, but he absolutely loves those kids. And it's so much fun to see them interacting. And it's fun to see all of the employees interacting with the grandkids. So with those two businesses that I have helped grow, because S&S Harvesting was just local in Kansas in our community. And since then, now we're down into Texas and Oklahoma. And I mean,
You need to
Dalhart,
come down.
Texas.
You need to come down here to Texas with them sometime. They can drop you off and we can hang out for a couple days.
Yeah, I know. If we'd have known each other last summer, I would have been able to do that because I was driving to Texas every other week
Oh my
during the
gosh.
summer.
I need to come up
But
there and see your farm too and see what you guys have created. I would love that at some point. So I need to put that on my
yes,
list, trip to Kansas. Then I
and
can
I'll
swing
have a
by.
trip to Texas.
Yeah, and we can maybe we can meet in the middle and hang out with Bobby and Shelly from our Moxie tribe group where we met too.
Yes,
They're in Missouri, right?
they are in
Yeah.
Missouri.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, okay, so I want to clarify a couple things because I understand the transport, you're moving loads across the road. And by the way, you mentioned not only have you been able to bless your family, but all the families of your employees. But then through TLS Logistics, you're blessing families that you're not immediately connected to by finding the loads and the opportunities for them to keep driving, to stay on the road and to make
Correct.
money and feed their family. So I think that is beautiful. Now, Stadel Farms, you said you have feedlots. So grow do you have other people's cattle that come to eat on your property, or do you grow feed that you sell for other people's cattle? I know you guys have cattle yourselves as
Mhm.
well. So
Yes.
tell me a little bit more about Stadel Farms. And then also on the SNS harvesting, we'll jump to that one next.
Okay. And yes and yes and yes. All three of your questions. We will go to sell barns and we'll buy calves that are between like 350 to 500 pounds. And we bring them home, and the feed that we grow is what we feed them. We also have several times had other like cattle buyers or farmers ship cattle to our feedlot so we can feed them. Um, and then everything that we grow, we put into the cattle that we have. So with that, we grow the cattle till they're about 850 to 900 pounds, and then we ship them back to the sale barn and start over. And we have so many different lots on our feedlot that are different pens that we try to keep a bunch of cattle coming in and a bunch of cattle going out every single month.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that just
So
keeps
that,
regenerating that process, that
right.
revenue, everything. I love that.
Yes, exactly.
Now, how many acres
So,
do you guys have up there?
oh my goodness. We, in total, we have over, what did Tim say? Over 8,000.
Okay.
Um, uh, we are selling off quite a bit of it just because we are really starting to focus more on the trucking side
Hmm.
versus the farm. So we're still going to have the farm. We're still going to have the same amount of cattle going through there, but we won't have like the fields that we will move cattle to for the winter.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it'll be just strictly feedlot pretty much. And then keep the, cattle rotating through the feedlot to help support, help finance the farm.
Yeah. Okay. I was thinking, man, that they got to have a pretty big farm. More like a
Yes.
ranch. It sounds more like a ranch, but I don't know. A ranch is just something they call things in Texas.
Yeah,
I
well,
could,
we call ours a farm and ranch. We've got three different feedlots. They're all within a couple miles from each other, but I mean, once you hit the the road that we live on, once you hit that road and anything after that for several miles is all ours.
okay.
And both sides of the road for several miles on either side of the road. So yeah, and then we've got some pasture land that's not immediately at the farm, but it's several miles down the road, and we start again.
Okay.
So yeah, we're pretty spread out in our immediate area.
Yeah, that's amazing. See, that's the stuff that some of my dreams are made of, because you were talking about how Tim was this country guy and he transplanted himself into the city for a couple of years with you and to build your relationship and all of that. And I'm thinking, every time just a couple weeks ago, I took a girlfriend of mine who turned 50 this year, and we did a little girls' staycation in Waco, Texas. And as we're driving through the little old downtown and the beautiful buildings and things, but it still just has that tiny little town feeling. And I'm like, man, there's a part of me that just dreams of this life. Like, and then there's the city girl. Like,
Yes.
for me, I want to be out away from things where I feel like I'm in open space and I can have animals and grow things, whatever, not necessarily as a business, but I can just, I don't know, adventure in different. I want to rescue dogs. I want to have property, and I want to rescue the dogs who, like, I want to be able to call the shelter and say, how many are on your euthanization list this week? Okay, I'm going to foster them, and
Yep.
we'll keep looking for homes, and then rotate. So you guys rotate cattle, I'll rotate rescue dogs. But I'm also want to be close enough, like within an hour or two, where I could get to, and maybe y'all are where you're at, but ideally within an hour I could get, but as big as DFW's growing, it might have to be a 2-hour window, can get to the city when there's events. There's a concert I want to go to, or at Christmas I want to go to whatever thing they're doing at the ballet or whatever, or I want to get to an airport easily, all those kind of things, right? So I'm like that crossover, but I do have cowboy boots, cowgirl boots. Yeah, they haven't ever been in a field though, so I'm just saying.
Yeah, we're only about a half an hour away from the closest city.
Okay.
Yeah, and Manhattan's a decent sized city for our area. No big. We've got another about an hour away from the next biggest city, and then probably about 2.5 hours away from like the airport. Kansas City
Mhm.
International Airport. So we're still in pretty good distance from anywhere that we might want to go or anything we might want to do.
Yeah, that's nice. So they're talking about expanding the little McKinney Airport up here by me. I live in McKinney, and there's all the pros and cons of that. People who love the idea, people who don't. But I think, that expansion's going to happen, and I think, ooh, that opens up my window of how I could, we could move out further in the next couple years and get some property and still be close to an airport. And then, I mean, Frisco, Texas is like its own little city, and they're building a Universal Studios kids theme park here. We've got
Neat.
yeah, the Cowboys practice facility. FC Dallas plays here. So it's like you really can do just about anything you'd want to. Like, I rarely go to downtown Dallas, maybe once or twice a year. And it's usually if I have somebody in town that wants to go see something that's down there, right? So I think there's that opportunity. But okay, you said, so you guys are close to Manhattan, Kansas. What college is there again?
Kansas State University Wildcats.
K-State. I'm going to do a little shout out. I don't even know if she listens to my podcast. She should, because she's my friend. But I have a friend, Amy McClanahan, who went to K-State. And until recently, we would always watch the UT K-State game every year. But now they're in different divisions or whatever conferences. So I don't know if they'll play each other again, but she went to K-State. She's a huge K-State fan. She goes up there, I think, at least once a year for a game. She lives down here by Fort Worth, but anyway, shout out Amy and K-State. She'll love that. But that's awesome. I knew you were in Kansas, and like, I've driven through Kansas, a small part of Kansas is all I'll say, but I hadn't really asked you to kind of correlate where in Kansas you are, but now I know. You said Manhattan. I'm like, hey, I know Manhattan.
Yes,
and not New York.
We're also close to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay.
So yeah, we've got
Chiefs fans.
Yes,
Nice.
and Steelers, but yeah, we've got K-State Wildcats that's close to us. We've got the KU Jayhawks, and then the Kansas City Chiefs. So yeah, we've got several teams that are closer to us.
Yeah. So you're really, look, you're living your amazing dream life on this with 8,000 acres and all these businesses. And just listening to the story, I'm like, oh, they're out in the middle of nowhere, but really you're not. You're not
Right.
that far from other things. And so, look, there's evidence you can have both. Whatever you want your life to look like, you can have both. I love that. I have some good friends from Kansas that live down here, and they're Chiefs fans, huge Chiefs fans. Of course, I'm a Cowboys fan.
Yeah.
The ever waiting for the next championship team, America's team. Look, America's team teaches you nothing but patience, um, perseverance, and faith. Teaches you faith. You have to have faith to be a Cowboys fan. I'll be honest. I love them to death, but man, oh man. Anyway, okay. So I love that. Now, SNS harvesting, I want to touch on real quick, and then I want to shift to some of the other work you're starting to do in telling your story.
Okay.
I want to spotlight that as the last part of the episode today. But SNS harvesting. So am I understanding what you guys do is you go to other farms all over the place and you harvest their crops for them? Then,
Yes.
excuse me. And then so when you harvest those crops, you harvest them and leave them on that farm, or you also then transport them wherever they're going that they sell those crops, or both?
Yeah. Both. Yes. So, imagine driving down the highway and you see a cornfield. And in the cornfield, you see this big, gigantic green piece of machinery.
Mm-hmm.
And it would either be a silage chopper, a John Deere silage chopper, or it could be a combine. Well, we can run both, but the silage business or the silage chopper is the one that we go all the way down, into Texas. And so, yeah, this big piece of machinery driving through the field, pulling the corn into its head, chopping it up real good, spitting it out into a semi, trailer. And then we take that to the farm, wherever the farm is, or the silo, or pit, wherever they're storing their silage for the winter. And then they drop it off there, and then you go back to the field and do it again.
Okay.
Or, there's been a couple times where our guys have driven like 45, 50 miles to, the location that the farmer wants the corn, or the silage. So, and to put into perspective, we get paid like by the load, basically,
Mm-hmm.
by the ton. And one semi can hold like 25 tons
Wow.
of silage. And then we also get paid by the mile. So imagine 25 tons going down the road for 45 miles.
Yeah.
And, so that's a good chunk. Granted, you don't get as many loads in every day if you have to travel that far.
Right.
But yeah, when you've got 13 well, it's not 13. We usually only have like 7 trucks in the field. The other trucks are over the road. But when you have that many trucks in the field, the cutter is hardly ever sitting still.
Yeah.
Because if the
they're
cutter's sitting
cycling
still,
through.
right. If the cutter's sitting still, then we're not making money.
Right. Right.
If the trucks are sitting still, then we're not making money. So yeah, we try to have enough trucks to keep rotating, so the cutter's never sitting still in the field.
I love that. Here's the thing. First of all, y'all are in the heart of America, and you're doing the work that's at the heart of America, behind the scenes, the work that people don't see, people don't think. Most people, including myself, when I go to the grocery store and I'm getting corn, I don't think about the farmers that planted
Yeah.
it, that grew it, that harvested it, that transported it, all the work that goes into me throwing an ear of corn on my barbecue. I never think about that. And it's not a bunch of people sitting behind a computer screen. It's people out there in the field doing real work to feed their families and to feed the rest of us. So thank you and your family for the work that you do. Corn is my favorite. So.
Oh, I love corn.
I absolutely love corn. My son's girlfriend, whenever she comes, they come over most of the time on Sundays for dinner. And whenever we're like, what vegetable should we make? Corn. Because when Stacy gets here, she's going to be thrilled. She loves corn. It's so cute. But I love that. Like you guys, and the other thing that I think is so cool and why I wanted to go back and touch on exactly what Stadel Farms and S&S Harvesting do is because you have built one thing on another, right? So you do the cattle and the feed, you do the harvesting side of farming. Then you have the transport piece that can move things, move cattle, move corn, move beans, whatever. And then you have the logistics piece off of that. Like you have stayed in your lane, but you're expanding into like you've stayed in the middle lane on the highway, but you've expanded into the 2 lanes to the right and the 2 lanes to the left to encompass everything that you can with your businesses. So you're growing, you've added these streams of income, but they all are interconnected as well. So I imagine from a business owner's perspective, that has made adding the next thing a little bit easier because it was the logical next thing to add that could integrate with something you were already doing and gave you some framework for kicking off that next business rather than like, oh, now I'm going to go over here and manufacture car parts or pens or whatever, right? You really just kind of built and expanded on what you guys already had, which is a whole different kind of a legacy too. The impact that you're making in the farming community, in your direct community, is really amazing. So I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
Anything else on those you want to touch on before we move on to the Lindsay piece?
No, I think I'm ready to move on to the Lindsay piece.
We covered it. Okay, cool. So I know, I talked about in the introduction that beyond all of these amazing businesses and your amazing family, what you guys have created, the work you've done, the healing that you guys have experienced, one of the things that you shared with me, which was really, you shared on one of our mastermind calls that really made me stop and say, I want to have Lindsay on my podcast to talk about all the things. But this thing is much more personal for you. And you did say last week that as you're stepping into sharing your story and things more, you had the conversation with every family member to make sure what were they comfortable with you doing in this area because you wanted to honor that. And they all green lighted you. So now your big focus is sharing your story in the hope that it can help somebody else in probably a myriad of different ways, but especially those who are in the middle of rebuilding themselves. You want to help those people who might be in those dark places, to realize there's something beautiful on the other side of that, but especially coming out of those really dark places, rebuilding to everything that's possible. So tell the listeners a little bit more of what that looks like for you, what you are already doing in that space and what you want to be able to accomplish. Because you never know, somebody might be listening who is like, Lindsay, oh, you want to write a book? I want to step into that project with you. I have resources there. Or I know you want to get on stages. People might be listening who have opportunities to help to connect you in areas for that. So share a little bit about what I'm calling the Lindsay piece looks like.
Sure. So I've already co-authored a book with 25 other authors. It's called Born to Risk, and am now an award-winning author because of that book. I never imagined that I would ever say that I am an award-winning author because, I mean, who wants to put the story of Lindsay in a book? That's my mind frame or my mindset. But my mentor, Emilio, loved my story, wanted me to be part of his project. And that's where I started was in the Born to Risk project. And since then, I have spoken at 2 different mastermind events. And I have another one coming up in December that I'll be speaking at. I've done multiple podcasts, about, I think 6 of them are published, and there's like about 6 others that still haven't been published for public yet. And then there's about 10 others that I'm going to be on over the
Amazing.
next several months.
Yeah, amazing.
And there is 2 more books that I'm going to be a co-author in, and actually 3 more books that I'm going to be a co-author in. So it's really my envision of sharing my story in hopes to help one other person has really grown bigger than I thought it ever would. When I started my journey of actually sharing my story with someone outside of my family, I started that a little over a year ago. Um, I never expected to, by March of 26, I'll have been in four books, a magazine, and multiple podcasts.
Yeah.
Because I mean, my mentor Emilio, he challenged me to a 30-day Facebook Live challenge. And my first question to him, as I'm laughing, I says, Emilio, who's gonna listen to me talk for 30 days?
Yeah.
Just a couple minutes, maybe 5 minutes at the most. And he says, Lindsay, it's not about your talking, it's about your message. And so that really, really stuck with me. So, the very next day, it was September 19th of 2024 when I started. And I was nervous. I was shaking. I hit live, and you could hear it in my voice how nervous I was.
Yeah.
And there's been a couple times that my son had to go live for me because my pain was so severe that I couldn't bring myself to go live for anybody.
Yeah.
So my 16-year-old son, as I'm saying this, I'm starting to have one of my pains. My 16-year-old son went live for me. And so my very first mastermind event that I spoke at was on my day 365. A full year of going live. I didn't just take the challenge and quit at 30 days. I decided that I was going to challenge myself to go for a full year because that's what Emilio did.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do it too. So I did. And 365, I had several, family members, friends, employees, they all sent me little videos, and I pieced them together, and I published it on who is Lindsay today versus who was Lindsay a year ago. Because I wanted to know what people saw in me over the last year of doing these videos.
Yeah.
And so, excuse me. I published that on my social media sites, and then I also created. I'm supposed to be part of a documentary that's going to be released next year, but then I also created a little video myself that has a picture of me. It talks about just a little snippet. It's only like three and a half minutes long, but it talks about my journey, and it shows a picture of me in the hospital bed with the neck collar on. I was bald. They had to shave my head so they could do surgery to reattach my forehead to my face. So that was a really, that was the very next day. My incident was on September 24th of 2017. And that picture was from September 25th of 2017. So I was in the hospital on suicide watch, and one of my nieces took the picture of me because she thought that eventually I might want to see that picture. So I've got that posted on my website because I now have created myself a website. It's a work in progress. I
Yes.
am very much an amateur at website building, but I do have a very dear friend that I met through Moxie that is helping me with my website. And so please remember it's a work in progress. But yeah, I put that video on my website. I put pictures on my website of the day after. Well, the week before, I've got a picture of me the week before it happened, the day after it happened, and then some pictures since, because I wanted to show pictures of what has come since that happened.
Yeah.
So everything is really expanding. And then I decided, after hearing people, I had people come to me that they were very honest. And one gentleman said, I've never shared this with anyone before, but I was there too. And there's been several people that have messaged me and said, thank you so much for the topic of today. That really resonated with me because I was there too. And so someone asked me, or said to me, you should consider going into coaching. Yes, I'm not going to do coaching. I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm not a doctor. I don't have a, MD or any letters like that after my name. I'm just me. And one of them said, Lindsay, you have life experience, real life experience. And they said,
Yep.
I think that comes with more authority than having a piece of paper on the wall. Because unless you're in that deep, dark place, you're not going to understand it, no matter how many textbooks you read about it.
Yeah.
And so I did a lot of thinking and a lot of praying and decided just last week, actually, it was just this past week. It was like Tuesday or Wednesday, one of those days. I decided that, well, I think I might give it a try. I was thinking, okay, well, I could be like an emotional support coach, but I want people to feel like they can come to me even if they don't need emotional support. So what I decided I was going to call myself was a breakthrough coach.
I love it.
I found my breakthrough by getting help and sharing my story. And I want to be that person for someone else. So that is my newest venture. Is I've got it on my website that I'm gonna do coaching, but I haven't quite stepped into it just yet. I'm still reading a lot about it and praying a lot about it and getting myself to the point that I will feel comfortable helping someone else.
Yeah. Building out the framework of what that looks like. I love that.
Absolutely.
So, Lindsay, I want to, as we wrap up this episode, what is your website where people can see more of your story, see the pictures you talked about, and actually connect with you?
My website is www.lindsaystadel.com. It's LINDSAYSTADEL, lindsaystadel.com. And from there, you can message me on like WhatsApp. You can find all of my different social media accounts that you can connect with me on. You'll see my email address, and you can also find podcasts that I've been a part of. And yeah, the video that I created that, really talks about my journey in just 3.5 minutes.
I love it. So I just pulled up your website. I didn't last time we met. I wanted to finish recording your story with you first. So I'm going to spend some time on there after this and watch the video. But As I lead into closing out this episode, I want to read the quote you have on the top of your gallery of pictures. And it said, it's
Okay.
actually a scripture, Psalms 34:18. Whew, I've held my emotions through a lot of this conversation, but Psalms 34:18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Lindsay, I think your story is an example, 100% of that scripture, of growth, of resilience, of healing, of overcoming. You, my friend, are a superhero. You are going to change lives. And I challenge any of you who have listened to last week's episode, who have listened to or watched either of them, they will both be on YouTube as well. Reach out to Lindsay. Maybe you're not yet in a place where you're looking for coaching. You're just looking for somebody who understands or somebody who's been there. Maybe you're navigating through a difficult time with somebody else, a loved one of yours, and you're looking for maybe some insight from somebody on how to show up for them, how to hold space for them. And I think that Lindsay, gosh, your story is incredible. I'm blessed to have heard it, to know you, and to be a part of getting it out into the world. If any of you would like to connect with Lindsay to have her, speak on a podcast, on a stage, be a part of a project you have by sharing her story, please go to her website. Again, it's lindsaystadel.com, and you can connect with her there. My hot take for this week, as I close out this episode, is just a reminder that healing isn't just personal, it's generational. When we choose to rebuild our families, our businesses, our faith, they all rise too. Lindsay's story reminds us that purpose can be born from pain, but only if we keep showing up together. My call to action for you guys, I always want you to do something to really take to the next level the message that I shared in each week's episode. And so if Lindsay's story spoke to you, please share last week and this week's episodes with somebody you know who maybe is looking for hope, who's just looking for some encouragement, or something uplifting, because Lindsay's story is all of those things. And if you're in a season of rebuilding financially, emotionally, or spiritually, please don't do it alone. Reach out, start the conversation, and let's rebuild your life and wealth with purpose. You can always connect with me. I have a ton of amazing connections and resources in all different areas that I would love to provide. But also, Lindsay, I know through her journal has a ton of connections and a ton that she can share as well. So I appreciate you guys listening this week. If you'd like more of my content, please just subscribe to Chat with Nat on Substack. And until next time, remember, focus on your 5 F's: faith, family, finance, fitness, and fun. Because the truth is, wealth begins within.